My apologies, and Bhavna, thanks for reminding. Okay, so we are talking about intensity. Now, I'm sure you have never heard of Professor Hershey from Stanford. Anybody heard of Professor Hershey? No. So there were two teams who were trying to do something way back, maybe about how many years about? Maybe many years ago. Okay, in the US there were two teams who were doing it. One was a professor of mechanical engineering. He had a lot of funding. He had students to help him. He had a well-equipped lab. And the other person were two brothers who ran a bicycle shop and who had never completed their high school. And all the people who were helping them were their friends, and the friends would work part time, and the only reward they got was some beer, nothing else, because these brothers couldn't afford anything more, and they had created some homegrown laboratories, nothing very specific, but they came up with this own thing. So these were two teams, and on paper, forget what happened, forget history. We know sometimes underdogs win, but on paper, who do you think were more likely to succeed? Who do you think is more likely to succeed? Two startups came to you. One is headed by a professor of mechanical engineering, well funded, very well known, and the other two brothers who say they work in a bicycle shop, and they say we are going to create history. Who do you think you're more likely to back?
The brothers from the bicycle shop.
The brothers was, come on, logically you would never back the brothers. You would tell that fellow, your bicycle shop, what do you know about mechanical engineering? This fellow knows everything. But those two brothers, Wilbur and Oliver, is ones who created history. Why? Because they were more motivated. The people who were helping them out wanted to change the world. Hershey wanted to make money. Hershey and his team wanted fame. Hershey and his team wanted money. Wilbur and Oliver Smith said, we are going to change the world. So the intensity of effort came from a fundamental motivation difference between these two teams. When some team is motivated by money, by fame, those are not very strong motivators. When you are motivated by wanting to change the world, and the only motivation Wilbur and Oliver Smith had was to ensure that an object which is heavier than air actually flies in the air, which was the first manned, what we call an aeroplane today. So they wanted to change the world. They had absolutely no college degree. They had no friends who had a college degree, but they had a fundamental belief that we can do that. So they would work very hard and would work many hours to help these brothers, not because they were getting something in return, but they were getting the satisfaction that we are going to build something that is going to fundamentally change the world. So if you're looking at a lot of people, you will find that the intensity of effort comes not because of the motivation. Intensity comes by having a higher purpose in life. Okay, the name, I forget the name. We celebrated its 100th anniversary of the scientist who created insulin. Insulin is a natural occurring substance. This person came up with the first commercially viable insulin. The way, if you know anybody diabetic, people who inject that form of diabetes, that form of insulin was created by a scientist. He could have made billions. He gave it away free because he said it is more important that this be available to every diabetic than for me to make money. Motivation is different. He's saying this is a terrible disease. This needs to be managed. These people are suffering, and I'm going to help them in suffering. I'm going to reduce the pain that these people have by coming up with this. The plan is not to make money. And there have been lots of people who have given this away free because they said it is more important that this becomes cheap and be available to a large number of people. So when you have a higher motivation, when the team has a higher motivation, other example was when an American president, John F. Kennedy, went on air and said, in 10 years, we are going to put a man on the moon. And NASA, which was made to do that, uh, it suddenly was very highly motivated because they said, hey, we are going to put. So we are, all the small problems that you have, the small issues that you have, all got sorted out because you had a higher purpose. So one way to motivate is when people have a higher purpose in life. When the teams look at a higher purpose, the purpose should not be just that let's meet whatever year end target or let's not meet the deadline. It should be higher than that, which is what brings in intensity. The direction is what a manager does, saying that I might be highly motivated to do something else. How do I get you to work in the way I want you to work? Direction of motivation, that is important. And the third thing, and the most important thing is, what do you do? Okay, you have motivated people, and when you have motivated people, these motivated people started doing something and you found a roadblock. Then what does a manager do? The manager also didn't know. You hit a roadblock. What do you do? So what do you all do? Things are not going as per plan. Unexpected difficulties.
Find ways to overcome.
Yeah, you're going to overcome, but then the mood is down because you worked very hard. You say, oh, I thought it'll be over, and suddenly out of the blue something comes, some bug comes, some unexpected thing comes, or the market changes, something happens. What do you do? As a
Motivate.
Yeah, motivate, of course. It is the most difficult thing that a manager needs to do, because you need to motivate people when you yourself are demotivated. You're also feeling the effect. You're human too. You're feeling the effect of, you're also saying, why did this happen? But you need to, at that stage, motivate people. Okay. So I give you an example from history, and let me give you, there was an English ruler called Henry the Eighth. Okay. So anybody heard of Henry the Eighth? Nobody. Okay. Henry the Eighth was English ruler, and what he did was he decided to invade France. France and England have been traditional rivals. He decided to invade France. So his men marched for 3 days. So in absolute cold weather, they marched for 3 days. So what happened is that they came to the place which they wanted to attack and which they had planned to attack, and found the army there, which was, yeah, yeah, come. Yeah, this section. They found an army which was warm, well fed, well armed, and twice the size of the Henry VIII's army. His men had marched for 3 days. They were tired, they were hungry, they were cold, and they were facing an army which was double their size and well fed and in their, all ready to wage this war. Henry VIII gave the greatest motivation speech ever given by a leader. So Henry VIII said, now I must do something that I have never done. And he gave a motivation speech to these people. And he told them that, you know, He did what? Your managers also give you motivation speeches. You're great guys. We are champions. You can do it. Yeah, you can do it. I know that's what the managers say. Yeah, come on. Let's do it. In my dictionary, there's no impossible. All this. Okay, so he also gave that, but it is the first recorded instance. But now Henry VIII had a bigger problem because armies are known to turning on their rulers too. When when the soldiers get really frustrated, they sometimes turn on their leaders too. So he had that, and he gave them a rousing motivation speech, and he told them that anybody who wants to turn back, I'll not stop you. He said the only people who are going to go with me, I'm going to go and attack, and the only guys who are going to go with me and attack, he called them band of brothers. We are going to be a band of brothers. The same thing that your managers do. We are one. We are united. You're the best team in the world. The same time. But the same motivation speech was given. And history is that they won that war. Because the history of warfare has always favored the larger army. There have been very few armies which are smaller in size that have won. This is one instance, and one reason for that has been this motivation speech. So motivation speech works. Try it out. Okay, those of you who manage team, give motivation. It works. Okay, don't give the same motivation. You, yeah, do your bosses give the same motivation speech? You must be. You seem to be rather frustrated with your boss giving the same speech. The same speech. The team will give the same thing. Okay, and but you will all, being the cunning people you are, will also, yeah, great speech, and yeah. This very funny behavior exists in the company. There is you have an official WhatsApp group, right, with the boss, and there is an unofficial group without the boss and his close people. In that, you are saying stupid speech. We have heard it million times. And here you're saying, great speech, boss. I'm motivated. Yeah, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to set fire to things. And you're going to do all that. So, yeah. If you give the same speech, it gets boring. When a speech is simple but from the heart, it works. When a speech is canned and has a lot of bright words but no meaning. So the motivation is about emotional connect. You cannot motivate people by just using some big words. Then Shashi Tharoor would be the greatest motivator in the world. He's not. Half the time you don't understand what he's saying. Then how will he motivate you? You're figuring, oh, what is he saying? And by then he's gone to the next sentence. So that's not the okay. Now the level and intensity of the intensity of motivation varies with different people. Okay, not everybody in the team are motivated the same level. Some people are motivated more, some people are motivated less, some people are self-motivated because they want to do something, they enjoy doing that. So they're you don't have to tell them to do that. Okay, so I was once conducting a training program for an R&D department of a large pharmaceutical company. These are all of them are PhDs, and they're very, very technical people. Really, really cutting edge research these people do. So at that level, the manager's job is not to sit with them and to look, okay, how many hours did you do today research? Research doesn't work that way. So you just are acting like a support, like a facilitator, a guide. And the entire method of management, it's not easy managing these people. Highly trained, all with different ideas, all of them believe in it. It's not easy. So the manager's role is not to clamp down and to push them down and say, you will fill in 3 forms a day. You will not do that. The job is to be a support. So the motivation, the way of motivation is to actually listen to these people, understand their problems, see how you can help. give ideas, give suggestions. That is what so it varies from person to person. And now, okay, we talked about this. And so one of the theories of motivation, okay, motivation has been studied for many years. There has been a um, lot of theories on motivation, and we look at what does the theory say. Okay, so we'll start with the first one. Have any of you seen this before? It is Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes,
You
sir, we've
know,
seen this.
yeah. So
Yes.
you've seen Maslow hierarchy.
Yeah.
So
Sir, I
those
have a
who,
question. Sir, I have a question on the previous slide though.
yeah, please.
So, sir, on the second point, sir, this organizational theory also tell us how can we work around that. So, when we have people motivated at different levels, how
Yes,
can we get the best out of them?
you motivate people differently. People who are self-motivated, just support them. People who are good but are demotivated, see what will motivate them. And the people who are mid-level of thing, see how you can. You don't have to do much to increase their motivation. But you have people in your team who are demotivated, but who are good for whatever reason they are demotivated. They didn't get promoted. Could be one reason for deep disappointment and demotivation.
Okay. So, you're saying be persistent with motivation,
Yeah.
but at different levels.
You need to figure out what motivates us. That's the difficult part.
Okay.
Not everybody are motivated by the same thing.
True.
Different
Okay.
people are motivated by different things. You need to figure out what is it that motivates people. Motivation for one person. What do you do? I'm sorry, I don't have your name on the screen. So your name and what do you do?
Sir, I'm Sanjay and I work with T connectivity in the engineering department.
Okay.
So,
And
sir, yeah.
what are the people in your team? What are their qualification? What do they do?
So mostly we're engineers. So we have a new manager. He's a first-time manager,
Okay.
and yeah, he's doing great now. But I am seeing like there are experiences when people are not motivated enough, and then also a thought came to me. So when an individual himself is not motivated, despite the manager motivating, then what happens?
No, then the manager tries harder.
Okay, okay, sir.
Who wants that employee motivated? The employee or the manager?
No, sir. I, as a team member, I'm looking at the
Yeah, no, I'm
behavior.
asking you a question. Who
Uh-huh.
wants that motivation, that employee to be motivated more? The manager or the employee?
The manager, sir.
So then who has to try harder?
Manager, of
Okay,
course.
now while we have that, what happens is that it is not easy to always motivate people. And I'll give you, I don't know if I told this story last time. Did I tell you about a person I used to work with called Rangan? Rangan, when I took over, Rangan was 15 years elder to me. He had come in from the army. Yeah. So different people, you find different things. Okay. So I used to have a very shy person working with me. His name was Subbu. So if you gave him recognition, you asked him to go and accept an award in front of 200 people, it would actually cause him a great deal of anxiety. It didn't motivate him. So giving an award in front of everyone, which we all think motivates, actually caused him a great deal of anguish. Okay. But having me time or having time to talk about his ideas with a senior manager is what this person would like to one on one. This person was very effective one on one. That is what would motivate this person. So I didn't need to give him any award. The good thing is I didn't have to give him an award. All I would do is to ensure that I would get some really technical people to talk to this person saying this guy is very interested. And that is what would motivate this person. Okay, so different people got motivated differently. And I used to manage the state of Andhra Pradesh for one of the companies. I was with a finance company, and we used to have problems of NPAs. The same problem that all banks. And we used to have a problem of NPAs in Vizag. And the Vizag person would get motivated by a very very strange reason. Okay, so what would happen is that we would have these meetings, and these meetings were quite brutal. Um, 1 minute, let me just. Okay, so yeah, so these meetings used to be quite brutal, and he would feel very bad when I would get a lot of shouting from my boss for his wrongdoings or his lack of action. He would feel very bad. And when we figured it out, I took a lot of blows for him, but it would motivate. And I would say, you know what happened today? He shouted at me because you have not performed. And he would say, no, sir, I would not allow this to happen again. I will do it. And he would then run harder and get it done. So he didn't like me to be penalized for his wrongdoing. He knew that he had not done well. He knew it. The numbers were very clear. But I would, being the boss, I would get the shouting, and he wouldn't like it. He said, no, I will do something about it. So people get motivated for strange things. Okay, so you need to figure out what motivates people. Is it easy? No. Otherwise, this research would never have happened. Since about 1950, we've been really figuring out how to actually motivate people. Okay, so now let's come back to Abraham Maslow. So Maslow said that needs, he didn't talk about motivation per se, but he talked about needs. And he said that needs follow a hierarchy. They are lower level needs, and once that lower level need is met and fulfilled, then somebody goes to a higher level need and a higher level need, and so on till you meet self-actualization. So what is the first need? He said the first need is roti kapda makan, which is the physiological needs that you need to survive, the sheer needs that you need to survive. Then you have needs which are of security. Then you have a need to be a part of a group, a team. Then you have a need to be recognized for what you have done, which are the self-esteem needs. And then we have the self-actualization. We'll come to self-actualization later. So how do companies use this? Any monetary benefit that you give to an employee is a physiological need. Salary, or if you're giving him a canteen facility, or you're giving him some other form of monetary benefit, or some other benefit in lieu of money, all those are physiological needs that are being fulfilled. The problem with that is that once basic needs have been taken care of, people say, give me something more. So just giving people money or just giving people a large salary, it does not mean that people are going to remain and be motivated saying, you're giving me higher salary, I will remain. No. They're going to say, what about my other needs? The second need is need for security. Okay, now I'm sure all your workplaces are safe workplaces. We have all come to a fairly high level of safety, so I'm sure everything is safe. I'm sure there is no fire hazards or any other hazard. I'm sure that's all taken care of. But the bigger point is there psychological safety? You understand psychological safety? Safety that I will not be hurt psychologically. So if you have bosses who shout at people, or you're telling boss, if you have a boss who's saying that I'm going to throw you out of the company, I'm going to sack you. Do you have bosses who do that? No? Nice people. Okay, so but you have people who shout and who tell nasty things like I'm going to sack you, or who recruited you, and words to that effect. You are ensuring that somebody's safety needs are not taken care of. And people might start feeling insecure. People may not enjoy being part of it. So, or if you have a team that is constantly politicking, constantly maneuvering between one person, or they're trying to target somebody and play political games, like it sometimes happens, you are ensuring psychological safety does not happen. So when that thing happens, the boss needs to step in and ensure it doesn't happen. So it's very important that person feels safe and secure, not just physically, but also mentally and psychologically. So it's very important that the psychological needs are taken care of. Now, psychological safety has got more importance. So, one big fallout of that has been sexual harassment and the sexual harassment rules that all companies need to follow. So you have, if you go to, I'm sure in your company there are people designated where somebody can complain. And the other things is that some of the more enlightened companies also allow you to that any form of harassment you can complain. So if you feel you're being victimized by someone, that you're being targeted by someone, that you can, even a non-performer, in my opinion, has and should be treated fairly. There could be many reasons you don't want that person. You can ask that person to leave in a manner in which that person's dignity is intact. You don't have to be very nasty about it. I have a great problem with the how many, I was talking to some of you, but how many of you work for an IT company? Okay, so which company do you work? Okay, and TCS. Okay, okay. Um, Now, the IT companies norms that, you ensure that somebody's access card is stopped or somebody is asked to be, in 10 minutes, your security escorts you out, goes against the basic norm of, you can ask that person to leave and do that in a manner in which that person is fine. Yeah, I don't think somebody should be sacked this way. It creates the psychological safety of the others in the team are affected. People start feeling insecure and people might leave, and you start getting a reputation of being a bad employee. Not worth it. Okay, so the third one is that do people believe that they feel part of a group? Do I feel that I'm part of a group? If I feel I'm part of a group, then I'm more likely to be motivated to be part of it. So,
call bandilva?
Okay, now for example, those of you working for IT,
change madida before off ಮಾಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಕೇಳುತ್ತೆ. ಈಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಹಾಕಿದಾರಾ?
Okay, fine. So, anything that the company does to ensure that you feel part of a group, part of a team, is to ensure that your social needs are done. Do you have, how do you all do? You work in departments, you work in teams. How do you all work? Teams. Okay, so in the department too, but how do you work in your company? Do you have departments and a high number of teams? Then the same thing is true with you? Same thing. Okay, so now what happens is that some of the companies say, let's give our team names and we will have some identity, we'll all have t-shirts with that name. All that is to ensure a feeling of belonging to our team. Okay, so you can call your team something, you can call yourself winners, challengers, or all these, the names remain the same. You ask somebody to come up with a name, they'll come up with names like, winners, champions, but whatever you call, it has become. Those of you who work in, also do some of you work in virtual teams, which is teams based, some of the team is based here, some of the team is based in some other location, say US. So but how do you ensure that you're part of that team? Do they do something to ensure you're part of the, that is there to ask what is the work you've done, Okay, support. Okay. The reason is the easiest way to make somebody feel that we are part of one is to keep telling that we are one team. Okay, so if So that's a way of doing it, saying, you know, our teams, and they say our teams thing, then you know that you're feeling, yeah, you were saying something. That's the problem. That's the problem. What he's talking about is this and this. That you say, hey, we did it together. Bangalore and whatever location, we together did it. So that is to say, hey, we are one team. And that is becoming more and more important. Okay, so there used to be a feeling of anxiety in the American team or the other team because they said these people are going to take away job. Now they have realized that they can't grow beyond a certain size in that location. You need India to grow. And so they have realized their job will remain. And if they help these teams, their jobs will also, they will also grow in their areas. So when that fear went away, uh, there is now a lot of other things because you know, I get all my information from people like you, but I do hear that in places like Intel, we are getting, there is a lot more collaboration that exists now between Intel USA and Intel Bangalore than it used to be before. You know, not even about 10 years ago, we got really low level work, but now we are getting some of the higher level design work too, because they've started. And the other one is esteem needs. Everybody likes to be recognized, and the more you recognize people, more motivated you are. Okay, so somebody was asking me a question on motivation. So my experience would be, use this to motivate people. Give out awards. Give, the golden rule is, give an award that they truly deserve. Otherwise you're devaluing that award. It is not motivate. But when somebody does that, and if 5 people have done it, give the award to 5 people, because they're just pieces of paper, or they're, you know, they're medallions, or, you know, they're plaques, and all of them cost such small sums of money. So, but make a big song and dance about it. I keep recommending non-monetary benefits, non-monetary awards. The award to, you know, employee of the month, or you know, best performer, or best quality person, whatever you can think of. Okay, so that is how you can actually motivate people. Give out awards, and get a very senior manager to come out and give awards. And trust me, they love coming and giving awards, because it's a very nice thing to do, right? Everybody's happy, everybody's smiling, everybody's taking photos. So even a senior manager is very happy to come and do that. They'll come and give out the awards, and you can be rest assured the award is displayed prominently in their workplace. And this is a very strong motivator. So ensuring esteem is very strong motivator. Self-actualization is largely about two things. Yes, sir. Yeah, please. Okay, sir. Sir, I think you should, Captain, sir, I think you should make this announcement. Yeah.
So hi, people online. This is the Dean. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I just want to tell you that next class onwards, I will be moving to your section, and Professor Sanjay will move to section A. Assignments, of course, remain the same. It's just that we are swapping classes. That's all. Yeah. So that fundamentally I get to know students better. We also have Professor Rajan here, who wants to make a quick announcement. Sorry for the interruption in your class. But
Students, you can hear me, online students?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So
Yes, sir.
I want to make a very quick announcement. We are, as you all know, you would have received the the AI workshop, which I have shared with all of you. So the price for executive MBA student have come down. It's 1,000 rupee per entry. It is going to happen at our campus, and we want more participations from all the students. Yeah, it's a very important workshop. It's been run by Dr. Srinivas Padmanabhuni and Professor Nilima Vobugari. Both of them have done immense amount of work, decades of work onto artificial intelligence in those areas. And the workshop essentially will not be a very 30,000 feet level workshop. It's going to be a very grounded workshop. So even if any one of you doesn't have any background in coding or programming or whatever, it may be still relevant to all of you. So whenever we talk about AI, we normally think about programming and coding and too technical, not my types, so that's not the way it's going to be covered. It is it will be important for each and every person, simply because AI today touches upon every aspect of your work. So it will be a great thing to understand what really is in store currently, what's happening in the industry, what is in store in the future, how does the whole thing work, and how is it relevant for me as a professional, because all of you are working professionals. How is it really relevant for me? Yeah, it's going to happen on 9th, 10th and 23rd, 24th at the campus. So students are encouraged to come to the campus and have a one-on-one interaction. You can also, of course, do a lot of network, because we are getting people from other areas as well to come and attend the workshop. It's open for faculties as well, because many faculties, in spite of, there could be a faculty who are HR or marketing or something. It's relevant even to someone like them. Yeah, so all of you are encouraged to participate. The cost has come down. It's around 1,000 per participant. So just message me, whoever is interested. I'll share the forms and you can, fill it, and then you can do it. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sir, thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
fine.
sir.
So getting back to Maslow, if none of these things work, salary increases don't work, ensuring that somebody is protected or safety is taken care does not work, that person does not feel motivated being part of a team, that person doesn't get motivated with whatever, with awards or rewards, then you can probably, these people are very, very rare. 90% would be, you will find some level of motivation. You will find these in some combination to be the motivators. But you might have a rare individual who's actually doing well, who is not motivated by any of this, but is motivated by freedom and autonomy. Though that is what we call self-actualization. Self-actualization is when they work on something, when they do something, because not because they're going to get an award, or not because they're going to get money or rewards, or people are going to say you've done a great job. These are people who are motivated because they simply like doing that, and they would want to keep doing that. That is all. Not because they want some other thing like money or not. Even if this person got very little money, he'll still continue to do the same amount of. So when you have such people, you might want to try out, does this person get motivated if this person got a lot of freedom for it? You allowed this person to do whatever this person wants to do, knowing that the work would be of the highest quality. Like I said, it is rare. You don't give this to everyone. They need to earn it. But you could have people who get motivated by freedom, the freedom to do whatever you feel like, the freedom to do. Okay, so all of you have heard of Warren Buffett, right? At the guru of finance, and he said, so he was once asked that how do you define somebody who's rich? So he said, when you have no monetary benefits and you can do whatever you feel like doing, then you're rich. So when somebody's got a lot of money, and that person's motivations is not awards, not that I should get something out of you, I want to be part of a group, nothing. I just want to do. So if you have seen some of the more better known musicians, for example, And if you have gone to music concerts and you have seen this person almost playing to himself, not bothering about the entire crowd, in his own world, he's reached this level. He's not playing for you. You just happen to be there and to enjoy that. He's playing for himself. What happens if you don't have the money? He probably doesn't care. He'll probably let you in. And the world's best known musicians, the best known sculptors, painters, they do things like this. Okay, so they paint just because they like doing it. A lot of painters have found fame after their death for exactly the same reason. They never went and actively marketed themselves. They did it because they liked painting. And they did some other very small menial jobs. Okay, so Srinivas Ramanujam liked maths. He got an opportunity in Oxford. That's about it. His motivation was his pleasure of keep working on maths. That is what was his motivation. So that is about. See, the problem with Maslow is it's too neat a theory. People are messy. Managing people is necessarily a messy thing. And this Maslow thing is very simple and very, it's very systematic. So it appeals to a lot of people. Still, for an individual manager to use, I think still a very, very good theory. Okay, so we'll move on and look at some of the other theories of motivation. Okay, so we are going to look at 4 main theories of motivation. Okay, so this is Maslow being one of them. The second theory was this gentleman called Hertzberg, and Hertzberg came up with something that was called a 2-factor theory, also called the hygiene motivation. Okay, so what did Hertzberg do? Hertzberg said that the traditional view is that there are 2 ends. There is one person who is dissatisfied for some reason, and if I remove the cause of dissatisfaction, then this person will become satisfied. So the satisfaction and dissatisfaction were looked upon as a dichotomy, as 2 separate things, and said that okay, you're dissatisfied. Why are you dissatisfied? Oh, I receive less money. Oh, here's a little more money. You will get satisfied. That was the traditional theory of motivation. Motivation has always been that there is a cause for dissatisfaction. You remove that person will get motivated. That has been the traditional. So what Hertzberg did is that he went to companies, he was doing some research. So he went and asked people, tell me all the things that demotivate you. They gave him a laundry list, there's this. So he said, what happens if these levels of demotivation are removed? So they said, yeah, it will be fine. So he asked them, would you get motivated? And they said, no. So Hertzberg was a little shocked. He said, I don't understand you guys. You said these things demotivate you. Then what do you want for motivation? So what Hertzberg found is that there are 2 factors. That's why it's called the 2 factor. There are certain factors. In absence of these factors cause dissatisfaction. But if these factors are taken care of, they don't cause motivation. They only cause mild satisfaction. To motivate people, you need, in addition to this, a whole lot of other factors, which he called motivators. So he said, you need hygiene factors and motivators. This hygiene factor is a very, very interesting way that Hertzberg looked at it. He said that lack of hygiene causes disease. If you don't have a bath, you don't wash your hands and eat, things are dirty, it causes disease. Hygiene does not cause fitness. For that, you need something else. You need something more. You need to eat nutritious food. You need to exercise. So it's similarly in motivation, there are hygiene factors, which if you take care of the hygiene factor, then it ensures it no longer is a demotivated. It produces mild levels of satisfaction. To motivate, you need to use things which are the other factors which are motivators. Okay, now, what do you think are the hygiene factors? What are things, if it is not there, all of you will get completely demotivated. But if it is there in too much also, it doesn't really matter. Canteen facility? Absolutely agree with you. Lack of canteen facility causes dissatisfaction. What happens if I have 5-star canteen facility and 5-star this one? What happens then? In 1 month, you'll get bored. I assure you. 1 month, you'll be thrilled. After that, you'll say, what is this? My mother prepares better food. You'll start comparing that poor chef to your mother, and there can be nobody compared to your mother, so that poor chef will never win. It is boring. You will not. The same thing happens with the office and its space. And, if you have a great office, it feels nice. If, for example, I give you a lovely office, but I shout at you every day. Beautiful office, the best office in Bangalore, but I shout at you. You say, good morning. I say, what good morning? What have you done yesterday? None. Do you feel very happy? Nice, beautiful office. That is exactly what Hertzberg was talking about. He's saying what people are doing is that they're giving salaries which are good. They're giving facilities, like he said, canteen facilities. They're giving nice offices, and they're thinking that is enough. That is not enough. You need motivators. What are the motivators? What do you think is the first thing that motivates people? Let's look at corporate. Let's not go to other motive. But what do you think is the first thing that motivates people? Appreciation, recognition, interesting work, interesting and supportive teammates, a supportive and a fair boss. Okay, so these are things that cause motivation. So what in Hertzberg did was he said all these fancy things are good to have, but they will not automatically cause motivation. And you will find that there are other factors, like first being the quality of work. Okay, so to give you an example, Steve Jobs, all of you know Steve Jobs. He was a terrible boss. He would get angry at people. He would do things like pick up, in a product, you make a prototype first, right? You say, this is how it's going to look. If he didn't like the prototype, he would take it and throw it out. His biggest insult to somebody is, this is not an Apple product. So why did people continue to work in Apple? Why did Apple be among the best places to work? Why did they get the whatever talent they want, the best of the world's talent? Why did they want to work in Apple? Quality of work, the feeling and satisfaction of creating a truly cool product, truly revolutionary, path-breaking product, the satisfaction of getting that, of doing that. So work by itself is a motivator. So if you have great work, if you're looking at other example, terrible example, but during the COVID times, for example, if you went to a government hospital, the second wave especially, those people, those doctors, they went out of the way to do it, because they said, as doctors, our primary responsibility is to cure. That is my motivation. And when I cure people, when I see people cured, those people are I'm going to feel happy and satisfied. So even in government hospitals, poorly paid doctors went out of the way to ensure patients got excellent, and in the constraints, the best care that they could get. Why? Because that is the motivation. The motivation is the work. Motivation is not that. That is the motivation why people join the Indian Army. The funny thing is that the Indian Army has never had a shortage of candidates. In spite of terrorist attack and all these things, it is less in the south. But if you go to places like Haryana, and the village will actually tell you that, 50 of our people have joined the armed forces. They'll tell you with pride that, in our village, 50 of our people, we gave 50 of our people to the nation. We gave them saying that you go serve the nation. So the pride is that is the pride. Do they get paid well? Yes, which is a good thing that's happened. Nobody, I think none of us crib about that. But it is not the job, but the feeling that you're part of that. So it's a work sometimes that creates motivation. Can you make your work interesting? Okay, so this is what is important. If you say work is work, come work. Sorry? I couldn't hear your comment, ma'am. Oh, is that? Okay. Okay, fine. So the Hertzberg theory turned motivation on its head, because they said now it's the company's responsibility to make every job interesting. Okay, so let's look at so there was Henry Ford, and Henry Ford said the job of everyone is to you break down that in every job into something that is so simple that anybody in the world can do it. That is how cars will be built, and he ensured that car. So he said the only job, your job is to lift the tire and put it in those four bolts that you have. That's all you do from morning to evening. 240 days, year on year, you come every day, bright and cheery, you lift the tire and put it. Is it a great job? Is it something that people feel very happy about? You think people are going to be thrilled? So that is when Toyota came up with a different thing. They said that we're going to have teams building cars, and every team is going to be self-sufficient. So you're going to have all the skills needed to build a car, and you're going to have multiple roles. So today you're fixing tires, tomorrow you will go and fit seats. Or you will first put the tire, and once you've finished putting the tire, you will go fit this one. Then you will go put the steering. And if you don't like this, you can also shift. You can say, I will do something else. I will, I'll fix the lights. That is going to be my job. So why was it important? Because it's important for a worker to feel that they had freedom, autonomy, control over their own jobs. That was important. That's a motivator. So if you're going to make jobs very, very boring, you're going to have demotivated employees. Okay, so and demotivated employees, there is a huge amount of stress that the job creates. Okay, so one of the famous studies, the study was conducted among government employees in Delhi. Delhi has a lot of government employees. We went and did that, and they looked at stress level of government employees. Do you think government jobs? Okay, anybody works for the government here? No. Good. I asked that before I make my next. Do you think government jobs are stressful? You can come when you want. You can go when you want. Nobody cares. Sorry? Okay, not anymore. Okay. Actually, still is, but okay, we can differ.
Might be same work day by day.
Okay, but they're not stressful jobs. They found extremely high levels of stress. Why did the stress come in? Boredom, lack of recognition, no growth, very tedious job. You don't know what you're doing, finding no purpose in your job. That was causing stress. So a strange thing. They didn't expect that level of stress, but they found high levels of stress because of the job. So when you have a job, certain level of government jobs, for example, police, extremely stressful jobs by the nature of the jobs. I'm talking about, somebody who works in Vidhan Sauda and that type of very chill, relaxed people. But they also feel that no purpose. So it works both ways. So it is what Hertzberg said is that it is the responsibility of the leader, the company, to actually find motivators, to make the job interesting. One way of making the job interesting is to show purpose. Okay, so anybody works for a BPO? No. In a BPO, they tell you what is the end-to-end thing that they're trying to do. So you understand, okay, if I did this, how will it benefit a customer? Oh, I'm only doing these entries morning to evening. How does helping that person? It is going to reduce risk. I'm going to ensure that the government doesn't put my CEO into jail. I'm going to do all that. So there is some need for a purpose, but it is the responsibility of the leader to make that job interesting. So that's where you find HRs in a lot of companies getting very, very active in trying to ensure that let's have, that's why they have all these Friday activities. Let's make this interesting so that people have a reason to come back to work every day. So this was Hertzberg, and the third theory that you have on Hertzberg is McClellan. McClellan said that there is 3 basic needs that people have. There's a need for achievement, there's a need for affiliation, and the need for power. So people with a high need for achievement will achieve whatever they want to achieve at the cost of the other 2. So if somebody feels bad, no problem. If I don't have power, but I feel that I have achieved something, I will go for that. People who want power will say that I don't care about relationships. I don't care about if I really do something. I need to have the power and control, and I need to be able to tell the group what they should do. And the third thing is a need for affiliation. So if I have a high need for affiliation, it means that I'm going to be very nice to people. I'm going to form relationships. I'm going to be friendly. I'm going to be popular. That is going to be my need. So he said these 3 are 3 different needs that people have. And depending on who has this need, you will ensure if you meet that need. So people with high need for achievement, if you give them awards, you call them the number 1 performer, you tell them that they're top performer, it will motivate them because you're meeting their need for achievement. Similarly, people who have power, if you delegate a task to them and say, you're the owner, you need to drive that, you need to ensure everybody does it, they enjoy doing that because they're now able to wield the power that they require. So that is a motivator for them. And in people who are affiliation, if they feel they're part of a group, so any activity that is done that involves them in part of a group, that will achieve that. Now, the problem with McClellan's theory is it can't be easily measured. So there is no measure for doing that. That was one of the problems. And then we have the efficacy theory, which was propounded by a gentleman called Bandura. Bandura's self-efficacy theory is the 4th theory that we are reading about of motivation. Now, what did Bandura said is that if I want to do a task, then I should have 4 different things. The first one he talked about inactive mastery. Inactive mastery means that I should have the knowledge and skill to do that job. So if I'm a person who is today asked to do some coding, then I should know how to code. I should have the knowledge for that. I should have the skills to do the job. Okay. Or would you like to go wash your? Okay, so that is what he meant by inactive mastery. So anybody who does not have the skill to do the job is not able to do the job very well, will obviously not be motivated to do the job. Simple. If I have to be motivated to do a job, I should know how to do that job. Yes, no? The second thing is he called it vicarious modeling. So he said it is not just the I having the skills. If there are role models, if I could see somebody, if I could learn from other people, then that would help me learn better on how I apply whatever is the knowledge I have to the job. So if I have a person who's teaching me, that is a very, very good way of motivating me. And the third one is verbal persuasion is motivation speeches. Hey, you should do that. But also the team leader telling you, this is how you need to do. I want you to follow step 1, 2, 3, 4. First, you will do this. Then you will go back and do step 2, 3, and 4. And the fourth one he talked about is arousal. Arousal is energy, enthusiasm to do the job. He says when all these 4 things are present, you will have somebody who is highly motivated. Okay, so let's look at how we look at it. And okay, now, do you all have training programs?
Yes, sir.
So, is there a basic training program that is carried out for your job? So, companies do that to ensure that you have the knowledge and skills required to do your job. So you could have certification that is a little more popular in the IT space. The company might say that you finish a certification in a certain area, we will train you with that, and that you will go through a thing. So every new job you will actually have to be trained to do that job. So if you're becoming a manager for the first time, you actually need to be trained to do that, because nobody is a born manager. The second thing is that, do you have people who you can approach, who help you with the job? Is it possible in your, how does it happen? To give an example, you said you were from Accenture, right? Yeah. In Accenture, they have somebody called a subject matter expert. And that is assigned to a project. So it is not that the subject matters are just sitting somewhere and they're assigned to a project team. In the project team, there are identified people who are called subject matter experts. Now, the subject matter expert is supposed to help people who have doubts or they want some clarification about anything relating to that platform or relating to the coding process. So that is how, why they're doing it. That is called vicarious model. I can train you as much as I want, but if somebody can just show me how to do it, I learn faster. What happens is that I've tried very hard and I went and told that person, you know what, I did all this, it's not working. And the person says, have you tried this? And I tried that and it works. Then my learning goes up, my motivation goes up. So you have that. But how does it happen in your company? Are there people you can approach in case you have any problem? Okay. Hmm. Okay. Oh, they are buddies. Okay. Huh. Okay. Okay. Oh, you one-on-one buddies are. Okay. And is there a dedicated time, or the buddy, anybody can? In a week. Okay. But is there a? Hmm. With the, No, no, it's an excellent system to have, because what happens in that is the newcomer feels a lot more comfort, and you can have as much training program as you want. I can assure you this buddy system will ensure that the learning is going to be very steep and very quick. Because lots of times all you need is somebody telling you, sometimes it is not everything that is obvious may not be very obvious to you. And somebody just tells you, do this problem. And it helps that other person grow. It helps that other person find out things. So that is one way of doing it. So anybody, or in what if there is no dedicated buddy, people find their own buddies, right? You will find somebody who you can help you, and you'll go to that person, some kind soul who is looking very approachable, and you say, I have a problem, I can do that. Okay, so the other way of doing it is that I think I asked this question to the group before, and none of you work for a Japanese company, right? Toyota, Suzuki. So what they do there in the breakout areas and in the canteen, they have huge boards. In a wall like this, they will have a whiteboard, and anybody can write any technical problem that they're facing. I am facing this problem, and there are anonymous responses. Whoever feels like, who thinks he has a solution, will write, try this out, try that out, try that. So this guy will write it and come back after 3 hours or 4 hours, and he will find some 20 solutions that people are suggesting. This is another an easier way than having a message board. So if you in the IT companies, you have message boards where you can do the same thing. Yes, no? Social media groups. You post it on the social media group. True. And post whatever the problem. And you find a lot of good suggestions coming in. You find that people do respond. Remember, the only motivation to the person doing it is the pleasure of solving your problem. Just feeling that, what, I cracked the problem. That's just that. But that is what happens with vicarious model. So any company that wants to do that, the other way is, of course, the internet and social media, general social media also, you have these technical specialist group, you post questions and they answer the same thing for you. But if it's confidential information, obviously you can't ask an outside part in the company. But you have, for coding and all that, you have general groups too. You have Python groups and you have the big data groups where you can say, I'm facing this problem, and you would have suggestions coming in. The reason is when you can model yourself on somebody else, when you can learn from somebody else, motivation is going to be fast. The third one is verbal persuasion. So the power of somebody coming and telling you, hey, if you did this, you will do very well in your career, or you're doing very well. You need to go up the extra curve. You need to do something. Verbal persuasion. That is what a leader does. The power of that to motivate people. Okay, so, I'm giving you an unusual example. So please don't bite my head off. I'm giving you the example of Pakistan and an unpopular leader at one time, but who was actually a good leader at one time. You've heard of this Pakistan batsman called Inzamam-ul Haq? Okay, now he recalls a story with Imran Khan. And Inzamam-ul Haq, who went on later to become the Pakistan's captain, was playing very badly. And in one match had scored 10 runs. And he, in addition to scoring 10 runs, he was seated beside the captain. Okay, not a very pleasant thing. So Imran Khan told him that, Inzi, in that you only scored 10 runs, but the 4 that you scored, Beautiful stroke. And he promptly went to sleep for the rest of the flight. That's all he spoke. But it is something that was reassuring to Inzuman Hulak, saying that my captain has noticed something good that I did today. He said that is what motivated me to come back. So sometimes when people are down, a kind word from a manager helps. I can tell you what definitely doesn't help. When things are down, when you shout at the team, it doesn't definitely help. Okay, at that time, that is not the time to do. That's the time to be supported. Is it easy? No. You're feeling as frustrated as the rest of them. You are feeling even more frustrated because you have a boss on top of them saying, why are you not doing it? What is this? You told me this, telling you all this. But that's the time you get supportive to your team. That's the team you're telling. It's very easy to motivate people who are doing well. Very, very easy. How do you motivate people who are average performers? How do you motivate people who are below average? That is the key. That is where you learn leadership. So if you, how many of you manage teams? Okay, so I'm sure you have some people who are doing well and some people who are not, and some people who are probably doing terrible. Now remember that you might get frustrated with people who are doing terribly, but they're teaching you a valuable lesson in leadership. Because if you can manage those people, you get those people to perform, then you can manage anything. Does not matter number, all that does not matter. You know how to manage. Because it is a piece of cake to manage the top performers. Anybody can do it. How do you manage people who are not performing or who are average performer? That is the key to leadership. That's the key to motivation. Can you motivate somebody who is self-motivated? There is no need for motivation. Can I motivate people who are not doing well, who are demotivated? That is the key. So verbal persuasion has a big role to that. And the last one is a personal thing. Does that person who is motivated, all these three things are done by the company. Company trains you, company gives you a buddy, company tells, the manager is telling you you're a great guy. Now it is left to you to get motivated, which is what is arousal. Do you show enthusiasm, energy to do a job? Now, different people react differently. Some people are over calm and don't show too much of emotion. Some people are very, they tell you things that they show that they have been motivated. But do they show energy and enthusiasm to do their job? That is a sign of. So the Bandura said that these four things, when they come together, you have highly motivated teams. Okay, so you have people who are, if you're looking at the IPL teams, this is what they do, right? You take people, you train them. There are coaches who do that. There are top people who come and do that. There are pep talks given. But finally, it is your energy, your enthusiasm to want to do something. That is what is the best. That is what creates motivation. Okay? Yes, no? Again, I'm telling you, the most difficult job, and in my opinion, half the manager's job is motivation. Everything else is other half. You can do, if you're doing this well, a lot of the other half will fall in place. You're not doing this and only taking care of the other half, you will never be fully successful. Because if people don't relate to you as a leader, it becomes a problem. Okay, so let's go on to these are the four different ways of motivating people. So we have Maslow, we have Hertzberg, we have McClellan's, the three needs, and lastly, you have the theory of Bandura's self-efficacy theory. Okay, now I'll just take another 5 minutes more and we talk about that. And we lastly talk about the Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect is that the effect that people, let me ask you a question that, what do you think you will answer if I tell you how high you can jump? How high can all of you jump? How high can you jump? Or how fast can you run? Sorry? Okay. Okay, now let me ask you a question. All of you have heard of the marathon? Okay, how many kilometers is the marathon? 42. Yeah, but you're right, 40, 42. So how long do you think it would take you to run 42 kilometers? 8 hours, okay. It doesn't matter. Okay, give me some figure. 12 hours. Okay. Okay, so now what Nike is trying to do is that they have come up with a project called Breaking 2. They want to they want people to run the marathon under 2 hours, 42 kilometers, under 2 hours. That is the project. So they are designing footwear for the best athletes in the world. And they're saying, okay, they're looking at biomechanics and a whole lot of things and saying, okay, how do we mold the footwears to your body so that you don't have resistance and they're doing a lot of things. But what they're doing is that they're putting it into the head of the runners, saying that we want you to run under 2 hours. It has never been achieved. So, you're saying 8 hours, he's saying 12 hours. I'm sure, we are not athletes. If we have to run, even walking 42 is going to be it's a stretch. It's not easy. Now, imagine that today, people are saying we'll run it under 2 hours. Okay, and you know that if they start this right now, if not this year, in the next 4 years, somebody will definitely run it. That has been human thing. That is the Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect is that when people are doing things at one level, you're saying, can we take this to another level? That is the Pygmalion effect. A normal person can run the marathon in God knows how many hours, maybe 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever. Can we get the best of them to run in less than 2 hours? It used to be, the previous thing was that it was thought that human beings could never run a mile in less than 4 minutes. 1 mile, 4 minutes. And somebody broke that record. A doctor called Roger Bannister broke the record. And it had never been done till that time. Okay. If people like watching good movies, there's a movie called Chariot of the Gods, which is on this. You must watch it. It's a wonderful movie. Now, Roger Bannister broke it in the morning, and his record was broken again in the afternoon. Because once in the minds of people, it was the runners, it went that, yeah, it can be done. Somebody broke that record in the afternoon. So Roger Bannister had a very short-term thing. Because why? It was thought that if you ran that, the human heart would burst. That was the medical thinking at that. So people would say, don't run. This man ran it and nothing happened to him. He was also a doctor. So it was surprising that he ran that. But once he ran that, it broke in the minds, you had a feeling that it can't be done. It was all broken. Then people said, hey, let's do it. That's a Pygmalion. So whenever somebody says it can't be done and somebody proves or a group proves it can be done, you find that next day that everybody says, yeah, we can also do it. It becomes the norm. And then you have the next level. And then you have the next level. And that feeling you get when you break something that people said can't be done, that is motivation by itself. So all great teams have done this by setting goals that people said can't be done. And you're having fantastic things. The best result you have, all of you know the Pfizer vaccine for this one, right? For coronavirus, the first virus that came. 41 days, the vaccine was ready. It took them 41 days to just prepare the vaccine. So you can imagine, it used to take decades before vaccines would come out. Today, we are in a position to say in 41 days, I'll give you. The period from February to December was the testing phase, because no government is going to have a vaccine based on just your saying it is good. It has to go through many levels of testing. That is what took time. The vaccine was ready sometime January. China released the genome, which is the DNA of the virus. By March, the vaccine was ready. And by December, the first people started getting the vaccine. So that is how quickly people are doing it. And I'm sure this will get shortened by the next time. People will say, can we do it in 30 days? That is a Pygmalion thing. That is what your bosses do, right? You say, I did a great job. Okay. Next quarter, can we do 10% better? Or if you have an I used to have a unreasonable boss who I'll keep talking to, called Venkatu Srinivasan, who would tell me that, he would say, okay, you did so much in the year. What are you going to do next year? And I would say, this is my projection for next year. He would say, yeah, this is okay, but can you do something interesting? And what is interesting? It would be something like 15, 20% growth or something like that. But what happened is, the same thing happens. How many of you are from sales? Okay, so some of you are from sales, because this is what happens in sales. In sales, we have an annual target fixing exercise. I don't know if that's how it is in Europe, which is a major exercise in negotiation. You go with the lowest figure, the boss comes with the highest figure, and somewhere in between you shake hands and do that. On the first day of them, you and your team are firmly convinced it cannot be done. And 365 days, more often than not, you would achieve your target. It happens day in and day out with all the sales teams in the world. That is the Pygmalion effect. And what happens is, when you push people to do a little more than they can, once you break that mental bias, we have self-limiting bias, saying we can't do this, we can't. Once that is broken, you do better. You go the extra mile. People do really, really well. Okay, so any company that is disrupting is because of the Pygmalion effect. They're saying, hey, we can do it. Okay, so that is what motivation can do. You can get results that nobody thought was possible. And in fact, people were convinced it was not possible. In Roger Bannister's case, there were, a lot of medical evidence that was available saying it can't be done. And finally, this was that it just couldn't be done. And then somebody said, hey, it can be, and I'll show you how. And the rest was history. Okay, so all the world's progress has been because of the Pygmalion effect. It is because of people saying, oh, it can't be done, I'll show you how it can be done. Okay, so, have you met Commander Joshi? Commander Joshi is one of our professors, teaches business communication. He was also an ex-helicopter pilot. And he says that the most unusual equipment is a helicopter, because it was, everything about this says it can't fly, but it flies. So I'm sure anybody who built it, everybody said, no, how can it fly? Look at that. But it flew. And it's been used for many times. So the world is full of examples of that. So when we are talking about motivation, we'll come back and talk about how do we actually use it in a company? What are the things that you can do it? Application of motivation. Okay, so if you go back, those of you who are trying to manage your teams, motivate your people. There is no getting away from it. Do you have a lot of other jobs? Yes. This is also important. Okay. Okay. People taking it from home. It's okay. So let's take a 15-minute break. It is 3:05, 3:20. We are back. Okay. Okay, people online, we are taking a break. We'll be back in 15 minutes. Okay, online team, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes.
Because somebody sent me a message saying my volume is very low. So is my volume adequate? Let me see if I can increase it. It's already at 100%. So,
No, sir, it's correct.
okay, fine. Now, okay, now let's get back to how do companies use motivation, application of that. Come. Yeah, and we do some time of that, and then we all break. Now, what happened was that all these theories are very important, very nice, all that is fine, but how do we actually use it? And that is when the job characteristics model came up. The job characteristic model says it is forget about individuals, forget about it is important to motivate an individual, but you can't motivate people beyond a level if your job itself is boring. So, can you make the job interesting? And how do you make it interesting is what the core, that is what the job characteristic model came up. The JCM is used largely to find out how do you make your job interesting. We'll talk about the various methods. So what he said is that you can break the job into three three important things. How many skills do I require to do a job? Skill variety, which simply means that more skills I need to do a job, the more motivated I will be to do a job. Okay. For example, you have, suppose you went to a, to an hospital and you have a cut on your hand, or you injured your leg. You go to the the nurse who dresses you up. What is her skill required? She needs to just dress up the wound. Now, if you compare that to what a brain surgeon does, who do you think requires more skills? The brain surgeon? So brain surgeon, do you think will be more motivated to do? Doctors tend to be highly motivated people because uh, one thing is that the satisfaction you get by using multiple skills. The same way the pilot, if you have to land a pilot plane, you require multiple skill. There could be challenges of weather, there could be other challenges of fuel. How do you actually land the plane safely? More skills that a person uses, the more motivated the person becomes. The second one is, do people recognize that this is an important thing in the company? So if I'm a security guard in the company who tend to be faceless, then do you think that the task has an identity? Not really. So they tend to be demotivated. This is a point that you must remember, that you're entrusting the security of your organization to a disgruntled, demotivated person. We look at how you can motivate them. And the last one is, what happens if I do my job well? How does a company benefit, or how does a customer benefit? What is the significance of the job that I do? More significant a job, more critical my function, more important the job I do, more motivated that I'll be. Because I think that I'm doing something that is really important. Okay, now if your job is to paste label on parts, anybody can do it. You don't even have an identity. Okay, so that is what you would then have no significance. In the American industry, movie industry, we call them extras in India. They're called PTEs in the US. Okay, so let me write it down. Somebody Does somebody know what PTE is? They call them props that eat. You understand props, right? Props are what you have for the scene. The extras are called props that eat. That I have to feed these props. So do you think they're saying that these people have a great level of significance? No. So any job which is significant, any job which has an identity, any job which requires multiple skills, that if you ensure all this and you train people to do all this, they will ensure that the job is motivated. Now you imagine uh, if you go to the airport, you've seen those luggage checkers, right? You've seen those people who scan your luggage or who check you physically before you enter the airport or enter the plane. Is it a boring job? What do you think? Whole day, you're looking at somebody's luggage. Tomorrow you come back and what do? You look at more luggage. Holiday season, you spend 12 hours looking at somebody's luggage. But is that job critical? If they make one mistake, it could cost a huge life. That's a very, very important job. Okay. They have a very well-designed mechanism of rotation of people. We'll talk about job rotation. One of the things in the airport is because they understand what are easy jobs and what are critical and monotonous jobs. They shift people from one to another. Okay, so people who do the physical scanning, so you spend some time doing that and some time looking at the screen, looking at people. Because the physical scanning is easier and it's a little more motivating because you meet different people. But the luggage never changes. Luggage is as boring. How can luggage get interesting? People can get interesting. You might find some child or you can find some old person who talks to you. You might find somebody interesting, but luggage doesn't change. So so if you can break your job up and you can tell people this on what are the skills that people require, more skills that you ask people to use, more significant the job is, and the job is in normal parlance in your company is thought to be glamorous or important. Those jobs produce highly motivated people because you want to do it. That is what you do. So if my job by its very nature is boring, the job is then it is my responsibility. Sorry, my responsibility. How do I make it motivating to somebody? The luggage checker's job is boring by itself. How do I make it interesting? How do you think they make it interesting? Any ideas? You tell them the main purpose. The second thing they do is uh, the Director General of Air Safety have mystery shoppers sometimes carrying things which are forbidden and they want to check if you can find them. Okay, that's more from a monitoring angle, but that's what makes life interesting. That once a month, you will have some person who looks like a regular traveler, carrying regular luggage, but is carrying something that is forbidden. And they want to check if you can find it. If you can find it, they shake hands, say you've done a great job, send you a report saying you've done a great job. If not, you get a report saying, you know what happened? You didn't find this. So that is that's one thing that they do to ensure people remain on their feet. Because it could happen that you go through your entire 3-month shift and not find one thing that is objectionable. So, I was doing a project for the airports and I asked them the same question and they say that there are 5 levels of check of your luggage that happens in Bangalore airport before it's clear. You'll never come to know of that. You check in your baggage and then you go have a cup of coffee and then board the plane. In that 5 levels, they do find objectionable things. So when they find something objectionable, they escalate it to the higher level. who then look at it, who escalate it to the third level. So I said escalation to fourth and fifth is very rare, but second and third happens very often. So they do find things that they find things are. So they once found in the luggage, they found a small gun, small one, and it turned out to be a lighter. But it's still an objectionable thing, right? It's shaped like a gun, but you pull the trigger and you can light your cigarette. Nothing else can happen. But it was still found objectionable. The passenger was pulled up and said, "You can't carry it." They didn't allow it. So they do have their moments of entertainment too, but it is by and large a boring job. So if I can produce all that, then I find the work to be meaningful. Okay, I find this to be meaningful. And my mother is a retired teacher, and she finds her work to be extremely meaningful because she would have a variety of students who would check. Some people she would have to speak very kindly, some people she would have to shout, some people she would take some extra care, variety of skills to be done. And finally, the belief that you're making a difference to somebody's life, that is what produced the meaningful life. Because at that time it was not a very high paying profession, but still she persisted for a great amount of time because of that. The next one is, how much of freedom do you have? More freedom you have to do your job, more freedom to make your own decisions, more freedom to take decisions that you think will impact the job that you're doing, the more motivated that other person. So people allow freedom to some extent, saying you can choose within these parameters, you can choose to work any way you want. You can choose which order to do it. You can choose that I will do this first, or you can improve on things. You are suggestions to improve things. Okay, so autonomy to do this. Okay, so do you have people who are from the production space? Do you have quality circles in your this one in your company? You have, and there are they make suggestions saying let's improve this work process and this is how we can do it. And obviously, if it is found to be viable, they would be allowed to implement those changes. That is about the autonomy of it. What happens in production spaces? The workers are do something called a quality circle, and a quality circle is something that is done during office hours. So it's an official duty of them. So they get together and say how we can improve things. Even if it's a small improvement, even if either the improvement could be in things like your saving on cost or your saving on time. Even if there's a small improvement, it's accepted because it's still a valid thing. Okay, and you recognize that, and then you annually you will. Okay, so anybody who's shown even a small improvement, but you can check. I think it's a good thing. The idea about them is to allow a worker to. It is managed completely by the workers. They meet. The role of the manager is to just facilitate the meeting. That's all. He doesn't sit there and give suggestions. That the workers do by themselves. Why you giving them autonomy? Manager telling them is an everyday affair. You're allowing them to say, okay, how can things be better? How can we improve our own process? That is what autonomy is. The more autonomy you give to people, the more freedom you give. Okay. What is the other learning for people who are managers or who all the would be managers like you? What do you think is the lesson to manager in autonomy? How many of you have heard this phrase called micromanage? Don't micromanage. Don't breathe down people's necks. If you think they are intelligent people, then allow them to do it. See, I was doing a training program for a large textile mill in near Bombay. And I told them you should give autonomy. And they said, you know what, all this works in an IT company, it doesn't work in a textile company. You don't know this, you don't know that. So after all these things, I said, okay, you know, the next time that person comes, you know, what happens in a textile company is that there are technical problems. They come to the person who manages, who's the worker is a person who has no technical qualification. The engineer has a qualification called textile engineering. Now, the worker has been there for about 15 years. The engineer has been there for 3 years, the team that I was doing. But he was there because, and he's their boss because he's got an engineering degree and they have not. But they have all highly experienced people. So I told them that next time they come, all you do is to say, what is your suggestion? How do you think we can solve it? So you say, you don't know our workers, they know nothing. We have to tell them everything. Even small things I have to tell. Ask them. Just ask them. They've been there for 15 years. They must have learned something. So they were very reluctant. They said, okay, we'll try it and all that. And I kept behind them and they said, okay, they tried it. That fellow has been there for 15 years. You think he would have learned something? So they found, to their great surprise, that they knew how to solve that problem. I'm not joking, serious. They were all surprised. I didn't think. So I said, okay, let this go on. So for 3 months, they kept asking them, what is your suggestion? And I said, now it's time to go to the next level. I said, what level? He said, when they come and tell you that this is a problem, put your hand around the shoulder and say, you're an experienced person. You know what to do. Go do it. Why are you asking me? And there was nearly rebellion. And, if they were nice people, so they didn't beat me up, but they said, what are you doing? How can they do it? How can I said, you tried once with your most experienced worker, only one person, do this. And what do you think happened? The fellow knew how to do it. So this fellow told that fellow, and the fellow said, okay. And he went and did it. And life got simple. And this fellow was so shocked that he went and asked that worker, then why are you asking me? He said, you never asked me to solve problems. So the moment you start giving autonomy, okay, then what happened? I was doing an intervention for them for a whole year. So I would go back every 3 months. So that is why I telling you this story. So when I met them after 9, okay, all this had gone. Now they asked me the most difficult question. So they said, what will happen to us if workers are all autonomous? Now they're all solving the problem. What is the need for me? So I told them, now you will start acting like a manager and do managerial things. You will do planning. You will find out what the problems are. You look at where are the choke points. You start doing such thing which you never had time because you were unnecessarily managing people who didn't need to be managed. They took it with a pinch of salt, but a lot of them changed. When you give autonomy to people, I can assure you, very few people will misuse it. Yes, there will be those guys who will try to game the system and misuse, and who were misusing even when you were, they found a way to misuse it even when you were having the control. So they will do that even after that. But a lot of them will like the fact that they've been treated like adults. You treat people like adults, they'll behave like adults. You treat them like children, they'll act like children. You say, I'm a parent, you're a child, and I will tell you, they will act like that. So autonomy really is about letting people do their job so that you can do your job. Otherwise, you will get into very, very, very small areas of let them learn. Would they make mistakes? Yes. Would they learn from it? Yes. That is the process. Okay. How many of you are parents? Okay. So what happened when your child started walking? Did your child fall? Was it very painful for you to look at as a parent? Did you say, I will carry my child, my child is falling? Or you said, child, oh, you fell down. Oh, okay. Now you walk again, fall again, then you will learn the third time. The same thing happens with management. You let people make mistakes. I can assure you that nobody will make a mistake that will bring down the company. They will not make it. They're not stupid, which is why you have recruited them. allow them the freedom to do the job. Okay, now, and I know what I have heard all the excuses for that. This happens, this can work in other industry, it can't occur in my industry because my industry is different. No, all human beings are universally the same. Second thing, this may work in America, it doesn't work in India. You know, India is different, not like America. No, it'll work in India. And the third one, it may work in other countries, but my company is different. You see, we have the same people work in your company. The more freedom that you allow people, the more autonomy you allow people, it has to be calibrated, it has to be planned. Otherwise, it will be chaos. You can't go and tell people, oh, you're all free today. You know, they were not slaves. That's not going to work. But a planned when you allow people to plan for themselves, they start behaving like them. The other one is that how much of feedback are we taking from people? Feedback can't be one way. Feedback has to be both ways. Then you understand what are the constraints that that person works with. That person understands, you know, where that person has to improve. But it can't only be one way that you keep improving, but don't listen to me about my problems where the company as a whole can improve. So it has to work both ways. So when you have feedback coming on both ways, let's look at some of the other things. Okay. So what are some of the things that you can do to make jobs interesting? If jobs are boring, can you move people around in a designated way? If you need general skills everywhere, can you make people move around people so that it becomes more interesting for that? Okay, so otherwise it becomes, you work for HDFC, right? So do you move people from one area to another? Somebody is being in front office. Do they go sit in some other place? Is that how it is done? Some banks do it. So you move people around. Okay, if you have a number of people doing general tasks, you can move people around. Somebody who's doing, manning a front desk tomorrow will go do something else. Or you move people. If you're in a BPO, somebody who's been handling calls will move to email support. So you were only handling calls. You now start handling it. You start running that. Or you have been in support. You move to production, for example. Or you were in spares and you move to some other area. So moving people around, when you start moving people from one area to another, it helps because everything is new. So I'm motivated to do that. That feeling of sameness will go away. So you move people around to ensure that people find things that are interesting. So job rotation is done in a lot of ways, especially in places where skill levels are low, but jobs can be done by a lot of people. For example, if you're in the textile industry, okay, now I'm attaching sleeves. Okay, after 1 month, you start attaching buttons. Okay, you have done both these. Now you start packing because these are low level skills. It is not something that is very difficult, requires great deal of that. With a little bit of training, you can move one person from one department to another. So you move people from one area to another so that they bring in a different outlook to this. They ask, why are you doing this and not something else? That is when you start getting new ideas and change will. Because lots of times change happens. People have been doing things because it was done for many years. Why are you doing this? I don't know. It has been done before I came in. Why was it done then? No idea. So when you have somebody coming and questioning, then people say, hey, I know why are we doing this. Things happen. Or can this be automated? Yes, it can. So you start doing that. So one way of doing it is job rotation. The other way is to enrich the job, give you higher responsibility. Same job, but you give that person more responsibility. Okay, so I was getting bored in my sales job, so they gave me training. I was also handling all India train. Then they also said, okay, look after marketing. So sometime I was doing all these because it was very interesting for me to do training and to do marketing so my sales responsibilities remained. But in addition to that, I was also doing something else. So I got to do something a little different from what I normally did. I could do things which were required a little more creative than what I was doing right then. So job enrichment is when you give somebody additional responsibilities and you say you can also do that. So uh, for those of you in IT, this is normally done, right? Anything that where your boss is telling you that new initiative, drive it for the entire group or drive it for the entire company is a job enrichment. Your core responsibility remains, but you're driving, for example, quality standards enforcement or project management process, new project management process. Do such thing for the entire company. Your core responsibilities remain. In addition to that, you also do this. In job rotation, you're moving a person to a different role. Here, you're not moving that person, you're adding to the role of the others to encourage this person to actually do things. This is very common in manufacturing. Okay, so in IT, it doesn't need to be done because a lot of your projects are very short term, 6 months to 1 year in any case. So in any case, you get moved from, do you get moved in TCS, do you get moved from one client to another or you've been in the same group? Yeah, but otherwise, if you are in banking, you could get moved from one client to another, one project to another. You were doing retail, you were doing retail banking, and now you're doing corporate banking, or you were doing corporate banking, and now you're doing core banking solutions. So you just get moved from one place to another. In manufacturing, where people can be in the same department from joining the company to retiring, you might need to look at the job rotation. If job rotation is not there, give that person more authority. Give that person more responsibility. Okay, so that could be. Now, the question is, why do you think it is job enrichment is motivating to people? Because that person will say, "I'm getting no salary increase. You're asking me to do more job. So why is it motivating?" Yeah, exactly. You'll get to learn new skill, apply more skills. We were talking about skill variety. Apply more skills. So actually, people enjoy doing this. And your core responsibilities remain. You're doing things in addition to that. That's the main difference between job. Now, the relationship job design, which is sometimes done, not too many times, is when you actually take people to meet people who have benefited from what you're doing, so that you can see how your job is impacting that people. So it's very nice if you can do that. If somebody who's been doing, say, instructional design, which is to design the training program, you actually go and meet people who have benefited from that. Or you're somebody who's just working in a pharma company, you actually go to a hospital, see how the drug has been administered, see how it has actually benefited. So it's done in a few places so that you see the benefit and you understand the significance of this. What is the most important thing that you're doing, that uh, so that is what you can, that is sometimes done, that is sometimes done when you take people to actually see the beneficiaries, see how they can actually make a um, the other thing that is done is that if you have one person, there are two people who do the same job. One comes in the morning, other comes in the evening. Then you allow these two people to split the day in any way they like so that the entire day is covered. So you have two security guards. Okay. Now you don't tell the security guard when to come and when to go. That those two people will decide. So maybe one day I will come early but I'll stay late because you have some other work. Tomorrow you will do the same for me. That they decide. You're talking about autonomy, you're allowing them autonomy. The requirement is that there should be a security guard in your premise at any point of time. There should at least be one person. If both of you are there, very good. But how and when is left to you. And security guard A cannot leave before security guard B comes, and B cannot leave till A comes. That is the only requirement. So you're telling the people, don't come and bore me with details. You can come and go whenever you want, as long as the other guy agrees. And you will find that very quickly they work. There could be some initial skirmishes, but they very quickly decide that, hey, this is beneficial to us because you might have some job which requires your presence. And when that happens, I will help you out and you will do the same for me. And they work it out. They work it out without too much of a problem. So you're allowing people to decide their work timings with another person. Job sharing. Or you're telling a team, 5 of you together have to achieve this. Who does more, less, you decide. And tell me. But at the end of the month, I want this result. Job sharing. In your thing, do you also have a team target? But what is more important? I mean, is a team target what the company looks at or an individual target? So the top management only looks at the team target. Okay. So they give a target to a team. If it is not a problem, what is the target, sort of target given to you? Numbers, dollars, what values given? Okay, is what your team has to do. Now, obviously, it can't be divided. How many people in your team? You can't be divided by 4 and say each of you do it. Some people always will do more, some people always. But that the manager decides and ensures it is done. So somebody who's very new can't get 1/4 the target. And somebody who's been the most experienced can't get just 1/4 the target. That person needs to contribute a lot more. So it is done and the team then works on contributing to the target. So what happens is that if one person for whatever reason does a little less, can be compensated with the efforts of somebody else. And that is what always happens. Or, in my experience, it is never the same person who's always at the top. It keeps shifting. Because when you go to the top, the other person says, why is that person at the top? Even I want to be in the top. So basic competitiveness will get you on top. And you also know that if you're not doing well for some reason, there is somebody else who'll support you by doing better in their. So that way you work out team targets. So companies say, okay, fine, don't bother with me. Here your team target. Now you decide how to do it. End of the day, show me so much of you get me 7.25 crores of revenue and I'm happy with your team. Don't come and tell me it can't be done. Don't come and tell me it's difficult. Of course, I know it's difficult. Okay, so that's it. Now you decide on the nitty-gritty. Instead of me telling you, you know what, individual target, let me decide on that. No, allow people to decide on a target. Okay, so ICICI Bank have a wonderful system. What happens is that they have an annual conference. An annual conference, what happens is that each team is given a certain base level target. You can't say I'll do less than that. But in the target, a target is set for the entire company, for the entire bank, saying the bank will do so many hundreds or thousands of crores. That is fixed by the top man. And then they tell, okay, fine, how much do you think you can do and how much do you think? There's a base level done. But everybody does not want to be base level because you want your group to be recognized too. So people take on higher targets. They say, okay, we will do so much. after discussing, calculating, they say, okay, we'll do so much, we'll do so much. And you will soon find that teams take on more responsibility, and somebody says we are number one, of course we can do this, they'll take on more responsibility. Somebody says we will be number one, they'll take on. And soon what will happen is this entire exercise takes about 4 or 5 hours of deciding. But what I've noticed is instead of people saying no, we will not do it, this is in financial jargon, this is called reverse auction, where you set the bench and then you say who's going to go higher. Oh, that person is going higher. Are you going higher? And then the mutual competition between the regions ensures that the entire target is done. And actually, they do more than that. The reason for that is you are allowed to choose, largely allowed to choose your own target. And when you have chosen your target, it's your target. You're not going to come down. So more autonomy you can allow a team, the better the team will perform. The more, again, coming back, too much of micromanagement, not good. Allow people to function. So this is another way of job sharing. Telecommuting, it used to be a big thing. Now we all know telecommuting. Work from home, what we normally call, it's changed now to WFM and WFH. Okay, that's WFM. Okay. So work from home, common thing. This is going to become a big thing because what is happening is already people are telling that I'll take a pay cut, but allow me to work from home. So you're going to see complex HR policies coming in because companies have just started going back to work. Companies are just insisting, all of you working from home or how much? What about TCS? Because that was a grand plan, right? But you are all working from home and that will continue. Hmm. To come to the office. And but people, the front line are all working from home. That is hmm. Hmm. So never it'll be 100%. Oh, that's interesting. And what about other companies? No, you can't have production. I can't sit in my house and say I'll work. Production I understand. Okay. But it's difficult even in engineering or admin to try to get people to work from home and contribute. Becomes difficult. Okay. 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 Collab. So you think more collaboration will happen if you. Okay. Okay. We've what about you? You were saying. Okay. Okay. One day office, the rest of them. Uh, yeah. So I know. So that's what I said. There will be very complex things that would come in about whether people should be allowed to come for work, and some people will be allowed. So you're going to have a lot of this coming in because I think companies have just started opening up the offices. Offices have just started opening up. And I do hope that a lot of telecommute happens because what happens is that otherwise traffic coming to the campus is terrible. Really, really bad. So I was very happy when people were all staying in home and I didn't see your company buses on the road. Very, very happy. So I do hope that, but I do think that, like you were saying, some percentage of people will continue to work from home because from a point of view of talent cost, it is always better if you allow some percentage to work from home, because if you are from an tier 2 or tier 3 cities, costs are much lower. So the salary looks a lot more attractive. So I don't have to pay so much. So, and at least, while the jury is still out, productivity has really not suffered the way people said it would suffer. Yeah, it's increased. Okay, yeah, it is increased. I don't know if it, but then, that fear that people will, it increased for a reason. It increased because there was absolutely no place for the employee to go. But with malls open, with our entertainment open, again, I'm coming back. You need to treat people like adults and tell them, look, you have to do this. Whether you get up at 10 o'clock or whether you get up at 6 o'clock is your problem. At 5 o'clock, get this done. You will find people will do that. So you will have to divide ways to ensure that productivity is done. So what does your startup do? Data? Oh, okay. Okay. So good. So yeah, maybe things like that would require people to come back, but I think most people would be very happy to do it. One thing that's happened is that a lot of IT companies have found talent in smaller places. Now, if an entry level TCS, I'm sure the same thing with Infosys, they paid some 20,000 or 25,000 rupees. Now in Bangalore, that is a little difficult to survive. But if I have my own house in Hubli, it is not very difficult, and it would look a lot more attractive. So from that point of view, maybe this will become the norm. So let's see. We nobody thought all this will happen. So let's see. This is something about that. The other thing is that what happened was that the more you have the say of employees or the teams in what the final results are going to be, it's going to be better. So there's going to be employee participation in all the areas that you work in. Now it is almost something that happens on an everyday basis in a company like an IT company, where they ask your suggestion. They ask your suggestion for everything. You can give a feedback on, say, canteen food, for example, or you can give. Then I'm sure there is an employment satisfaction survey that happens where you can say whether you're very satisfied with the company and its policy. But it's a little more complex when you are talking from manufacturing sector, because a lot of these workers are not very sophisticated people where you can just send a Google form and they'll fill it up. Doesn't happen. So one way of doing, and there could be misinformation, rumor mongering that happens, because some of these people are also not very highly educated. So they could be rumor mongering, saying, what the company is trying to do, they're trying to throw us all out, and you could have that sort of very dangerous situation. So some of the companies allow worker participation or employee participation in management and decision making. They allow them to actually sit through the decisions that the top management takes. So by doing that, you're making the entire process very transparent. Everything, like say how much of hike to give, everything is transparent. In a public sector, the union knows everything that is there. They know how much managing director's salary is. And because of that, unfortunately, that poor person doesn't get paid too highly. I think the salary of the managing director of SBI is something like 25 lakhs. And the salary of a much smaller bank will be in a few crores. The managing director's salary will be at least 10 times more, if not more. and with the ESOPs and the whole works. So why is that? Because it has to be transparent so that the employee union should know how your salary. But one way of handling that is to allow people to participate in management. So most of the companies have various mechanisms and forums to do that. They allow some amount of participation, some amount of discussion. You could have. Do you have? Uh, how big is your startup? 3,000. That's not a startup. Startup will have 50 employees. Yeah, so 3,000 is a regular company. I would say anything more than 150. Okay, okay. But in a startup, it's easier to actually share opinions and say, "Hey, this is a bad idea." It may get a little more difficult because um, how many employees are there in KPMG? Uh, yeah, so now I has 20,000 people. Wow. Okay, but overall, you will be also collaborating with them. Now, when you're a smaller company, it's easier to go up to a boss or the boss's boss and say, "Hey, you know what? I have a problem." It becomes a little more tricky when you have 20,000 employees. Even if you have Google form, you'll have too much of data. You don't know what to make of. I don't know if you have seen employee satisfaction survey saying on this thing we moved from 4.1 to 4.16, and the HR things have done a great job. Rubbish. What information it is there. It is rounded off. It becomes so. One way of doing it is to have committees, forums where people can actually express opinions. Okay, does your company have something where you can, other than the technical thing, on where an employee can actually give their opinion and say on any anything to do with employee benefits, on infrastructure? Okay, there's a survey that is. Okay, so it becomes very important. Okay, but um, companies and management tends to be a lot more unsympathetic in the manufacturing thing, right? Because some of they don't take this amount of care for that. One way of doing it is to actually have forums to listen to the problems and complaints of people. The reason for that is, one is of course to motivate people. Just listening to people is motivation. I'll promise that. If you do nothing but just listen to that person is motivated. Okay, so yeah, so we have time. So my father used to work for BHL. You've heard of BHL, right? So it is a huge factory. Now BHL had a practice of welcoming employees' children back to the same unit where your father's. It was a big thing. So one of my friends, she finished her MBA and joined BHL. And in one thing is she joined HR. She was a HR manager. So one thing the HR department did was they look after the canteen. And any canteen you can run, 5-star canteen, people will get tired of the food very quickly. And there'll always be complaints saying lousy food everywhere. And the union is obviously, they consider these canteens to be a major problem and all. So she joined that, and second day she was in her thing. And the factory is a huge hall. And most of them had gone for lunch, and she was sitting at her desk and eating, having her lunch, when 5-6 union goons barged into her cubicle. They were carrying trays of food, and they were very angry. And they banged their food on her table and told her that, is this the food that you serve to employees? Employees work so hard, workers work so hard. Is this the food you serve? It is not food that human beings eat, and very, very, very angry. Second day in her job, she simply has no idea what these people are talking about. So she said, okay, please sit down. Said, she introduced herself, said, what is your name? Just tell me your name and then we will discuss this. Told her name. And she said, okay, fine. Tell me your problem. Tell me what your problem. And she did nothing but to listen to the problem, understand it, and write it down. So she wrote about 5-6 pages of problems regarding food and cafeteria. The food in cafeteria was subsidized. In spite of that, they had a problem. Anyway, this talk went on for about 45 minutes. And even those guys who were angry after about half an hour of talk got tired of being angry and they started cooling down and becoming calm. And her father worked in the same thing. My father and her father were colleagues. So, we lived in a colony, we knew each other. So they started getting, so they start, yeah. So they started getting friendly with her. Somebody said, I know your father. Somebody said, my son used to be in your class. And, they started getting friendly. In the factory, they have strict timings. When the siren goes off, you get back to work. Siren went off, they went back to work. Okay. So they got up to go back to work. So she said, what do I do with all these problems? 5 pages of problems. What do I do? Is it the
off பண்ணுங்க அது ஆஃப் பண்ணியாச்சு இன்னொரு சோர்ஸ் ஆஃப் பண்ணனும் BMSDB 1 B7
Sudesh, can you please mute your mic?
Yeah. Okay. So she asked him, what do I do with him? So the union leader laughed and told her, these problems were there before you came. It will be there after you leave. But you listen to us. That itself is a big thing. Most people don't listen to us. You listen to us. So lots of times when people are angry, they understand that you can't do much. But the fact that you're listening to people is a big thing. So what does this forum do is allow people to let off steam, frustration. Okay, sorry, it's my phone. It is, I'm sure it is some marketing call. Who always call me when I'm in class. They know, advanced GPS systems they have in. Till whole day I don't receive. The fact is that lots of time motivation is just listening to what the other person's problem is. Sometimes the person knows you can't. Okay, so listen without even if you don't offer a solution, listen and ask the person, help that person find a solution that helps. Okay, so what the employee participation forums do is that it helps people tell that, hey, this is wrong. This is not the right thing. So it helps that you can tell people that not the right thing, or the workers see this differently. So enlightened organization like Tata Steel, have you heard of Tata Steel? Tata Steel started in 1903. They have never had a strike. The reason for that is that they have very, very strong relationship with the union, and they regularly talk to the union even on very, very senior decisions that are taken, saying, hey, do you have a different idea? So what happened was that Tata Steel was trying to acquire a British steel company called Chorus. And the union leader of Tata Steel, Jamshedpur, send a mail to Chorus union leader to union leader, saying that I have known and I have been a union leader here for 25 years. These are wonderful employers. So if possible, recommend this deal. Recommend Tatas to be that. So that's how strong their. So good worker relations is good business, is actually good business. Okay, but it helped. That fellow actually, they put out this one's, they made a recommendation to the management saying that if the price is same, go with Tatas. We would rather work with them. Tatas are struggling with that plan. That's a different story, but at least that is how strong it is. When you have forums where people can express opinions and express strong opinions, fine. At least hear them. If possible, give the official line and try to argue with them. But at least you understand what is their position, where are they coming from, why do they feel that they cannot do something. Try to understand that. So that is what these people do. So some of these very common in that you, if possible, have participative management. See, participative management was actually a good idea, but somehow fell out of fashion. It used to be very popular in the 70s and 80s. We were discussing the Japanese style of management. It used to be part of the Japanese style of management where you allow people to take decisions and all that. But participative management is actually about autonomy. That given the parameters, allow people to take decisions, make decisions on their own. So they will decide on a lot of things. Allow them the freedom to do that. If you can do that, you will have very satisfied people. So more amount of freedom that is allowed, the more motivated people are. So this is again, this one on, okay. Representative participation is what we normally know as unions or associations. Now, the IT people don't understand this, but it's a common thing in manufacturing that you have a union. Do you have a union in your this one? You have a. I'm sure Bosch has a union. Just start, but you have a union now. So while it is not essential and the unions have gone through ups and downs, one way is that the advantage to the company is you have a very small group who represent the whole company. You talk to them, and if they have problems, they come back to you and you do that. So that is one way of representing. So any type of representative management really not been used in India too much, where people have said that we will manage and somebody else will implement. So, but otherwise in companies where employees have a great deal of say in decisions, you have better, more harmonious relationships, and you have a better and more motivated workforce. In one thing that happens when you have large companies is that the rumor mills fly. If there is any problem, you will have wild rumors going around, and it becomes very difficult for you to actually to fight those rumors, because rumors will come back to you. I was working for a company, and we were part of a takeover bid. Okay, it didn't go through. That's a different story. But my company was in Mumbai. I was based in Bangalore. So I would go to Mumbai for that meeting, and we would discuss all that meeting and saying, okay, we will do this, we'll do that. Okay, this is the bid, or should we accept, not accept? We do all that. And I would come back. I would come back by the evening flight. I would be back in Bangalore by 9 o'clock. And by the time I landed up, I would start hearing rumors of what happened in the meeting where I was there, which was really fanciful. I didn't even know this was existing. We had not discussed that, but fanciful thing. People sending me messages saying, I believe this was discussed. I believe you're going to sack 20,000 people. You're going to sack the complete company. I believe this is going to happen. That nothing was discussed. How do you fight it? So one way out is to actually have open discussions. So one thing that we did as a company was, to have Zoom meetings after that, where the entire top management was there, along with whoever wanted to log in could log in and could ask any question. And we would, of course, brief and saying, in this meeting, we have done this. Put an official viewpoint across saying that we have discussed this. To a large extent, we were able to stop this rumor mongering, because at least people said, hey, this was not discussed. Okay. And if you're discussing, say, one, the rumor will be that you have discussed 100. So while rumors will float. So when you're doing that, you need to any form of representation, any form of having groups of people talk to you is motivating. Is good. So if you've actually worked for a large manufacturing company, you will appreciate the importance of this, because it works both ways. Sometimes when the management has a problem too, they reach out to the union and say, help us out. Production not what it needs to be. Then let's do it. Then the union says, okay, give us overtime, we will do that. And they negotiate and come up with a new override time, but they'll say we will work so many hours more. So the management will agree to some figure and the entire thing will happen and the production will happen the way it should happen. So you have it both ways. It helps both ways when you have participative management. Okay, so this all I have. I don't think there's anything more. Okay, variable pay. Okay, we'll just look at variable pay, and all of you get variable pay, right? But it's become very complex, and actually people don't understand how they get that variable pay. And they change the policy. And it's this retrospective effect. I used to work for a company where they would tell us, on April 1st, we used to come to know what we had to do on before March 31st. So they would tell us how we have not done what was planned, but that was told on 1st of April. So no matter what we did, we didn't get what we were supposed to get. And of course, then people stopped trying. People did what was possible and didn't try very hard. So variable pay can happen on many ways. These are some of the many ways of doing it. In factories, it is how much of production it is linked to that. So it's called a piece rate. So the more pieces you make, you do that. Merit-based pay is that it is an improvement over piece rate, saying that if you hit so much of production, only then you will be eligible for an incentive. Every piece will not get, but if the team hits a certain target, then you will get that. That is usually the thing. Bonus, all of you are aware of. Okay, do you all get bonuses? You get. Okay, so you get bonuses, or I don't know, some people you don't get. Okay, where do you work? Okay, you don't get a bonus. Okay. And then what happens? Every year your pay goes up then? Oh, you very recently joined. I'm sure you'll get a bonus. You didn't get a startup bonus, joining bonus, not a startup bonus, joining bonus. Yeah, you didn't get a joining bonus. Oh, so you're already there. Okay, variable pay is on. Okay. Is this your first job? Okay, but how much of experience you have? Okay, so then you should be getting a variable pay. Okay. But it's got very complicated. Employee does not understand how that variable pay is calculated. It was supposed to be motivational, but it has become more a salary fixation tool rather than a motivation tool. And it's given right at the beginning. They tell you achieve so much, then the incentive schemes. The same thing happens in production. Your production also must be having you have a bonus if you hit a certain level, right? What about yours? Do you have a only okay? But you have a variable pay linked to how much of production you. Okay, so okay, overall plan should achieve the numbers. Okay, I know it's getting very complicated. Profit sharing, if you, I'm sure a lot of you will hit the higher levels where a percentage of profit is given to senior people. What are called C levels, CTO, CIO, CEO levels. A percentage of profit is given to them to motivate them to make more profit. So if you hit that level, yes, In a startup, maybe if you start your own startup, maybe you could aim to achieve that. You have stock options. Okay, so employee stock options work very well in companies where when the company does very well and you've held on to the stock, and the people in Infosys who got it right at the beginning or very early stages, a lot of them made serious money. Okay, the rumor was that Narayan Murthy's driver became a millionaire. I don't know how true it is, because there has been no official this one on that, but the rumor mill is that even he became a millionaire because he got stock and he held on to the stock for a very long period of time. So an employee stock option is always a good idea. Another way of motivating people. Okay, so if you're a startup and you got a lot of things and you got taken over by some big company, then you made huge sums of money. Okay, so the original founders of Flipkart made I don't remember the exam. I think it was some 4,000 crores or something. Not bad, right? In about 10 years. Now, for the rest of their life, they'll not be able to spend it. How will you spend so much? So that's why they're starting other companies. But that is the advantage of an employee stock. So a lot of companies, again, this used to be in thing long time back. But apart from startups, I don't see too many companies doing this. But actually, it's a very powerful way of uh, retaining people, keeping people, because there's a lock-in period for a stock. They say you work for 3 years, then it'll vest with you. You leave, then you forfeit that. So it acts as a deterrent for people to leave. If you think the company is doing well and you will make a lot of money, it is not easy to just walk away from a lot of money. So okay, so that's how it acts like that. So this is how companies actually use motivation theories to motivate people. More motivation, more productivity, more profit for the company. Okay, so the more you can get your people motivated, the more the company actually benefits. And there's a direct linkage between highly motivated employees and how much of employee satisfaction and how much of customer satisfaction as a result of both these. You have satisfied employees, you'll have satisfied customers. You have satisfied customers, you'll have satisfied employees, and the cycle continues. Okay, so because both these are related and correlated very strongly, that is what happens with that. So that's all I have. Okay, so thank you very much, and start doing your assignment. Your assignment is due. First assignment is due. So both the assignments have been put up. So please start doing that. And yeah, you have to make a 10-minute video about that. Don't make it. I mean, we're not going to time it and say, okay, this is 9 minute 33. But if you're making a 2-minute video on that, the idea is, it's always a figure that is around that. Okay, so same thing. If somebody made a 10-minute 15-second video, it is not that we're going to cut that person. That's not right. But as long as it's a substantial video presentation. And the other assignment is a group thing. So it would be a nice idea if you start at least discussing in the group and start looking at what the cases have been put up. And so just look at that, and your groups, right? I saw some of the groups. Some of the group members were talking to her. So you've been talking. So I'm happy you know it. And okay, so have a nice day, and I'll see you 2 weeks from now. Okay, so
Thank you, sir.
no. But you don't need to do that, right? You're asked to do it for 2, right? 2 articles is what you have to. What is the assignment? Okay, 5 articles. So how can you do it in one? Each of them are different. No. So So it's been put up. So please follow the guidelines. Okay, see you. Have a nice day. Whatever is left with it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.